I never thought a single notification could destroy everything I believed in. The message arrived at exactly 8:47 p.m. Unknown sender. One attachment. When I opened it, my entire world tilted sideways. There was Zeke, my fiancé, the man I was supposed to marry in 2 months, sitting across from someone in what was unmistakably an intimate setting. Candlelight flickered between them. Wine glasses caught the amber glow. His smile, the one I thought belonged only to me, was directed at another man. My hands started trembling as I zoomed in on the image. The restaurant was Rosewood Grill, the most expensive and notoriously romantic spot in the city. Not a suit shop. Definitely not the boring errand Zeke had mentioned this morning when he kissed my forehead and promised to be home by 9. The man sitting across from him wasn't a stranger either. Their body language screamed familiarity, history, something deeper than casual acquaintance. I stared at the photo until my eyes burned, willing it to be a mistake, a misunderstanding, anything but what it obviously was, but there was no denying the truth frozen in those pixels. That was my Zeke, with someone else. My phone vibrated again, pulling me from my spiraling thoughts. He's been lying to you for 3 weeks. You deserve better than this. 3 weeks. The words hit me like a physical blow. 3 entire weeks of deception? I tried to rewind through recent memory, late meetings, extra shifts, that sudden interest in going to the gym alone. Had all of it been fabricated? We just finished our cake tasting last Saturday. He'd fed me a bite of the lemon raspberry tier and laughed when I got frosting on my nose. Everything seemed perfect. Was I the only one living in that illusion? The front door clicked open, snapping me back to the present. Zeke walked in carrying his jacket, that easy smile still on his face like he hadn't just shattered my heart into 1,000 pieces. He looked so normal, so innocent, so completely unaware that I knew. "Hey babe," he said casually, moving toward me for his usual greeting kiss. I turned my face away. The smile I'd fallen in love with faltered. "What's wrong?" His eyebrows drew together in confusion. Instead of answering, I held up my phone, screen facing him. The restaurant photo glowed between us like damning evidence at a trial. I watched his expression transform in real time. Confusion melted into shock, then hardened into guilt. He stared at the screen for several long seconds, and I could practically see him calculating what excuse might work, what lie might save him. "Jace, I can explain." "Who is he?" My voice came out surprisingly steady despite the storm raging inside my chest. "This isn't what it looks like." "Stop." I cut him off with a single word. "Don't insult me with that line. Just tell me who he is." Zeke rubbed his face with both hands, a gesture I'd seen 100 times when he was stressed. He sank onto the couch, but I remained standing. I needed the height advantage, needed to feel like I had some control in this situation that was rapidly spiraling away from me. "That's Rael," he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "My ex-boyfriend." The floor seemed to drop out from under me. His ex? The same ex he'd claimed to have completely moved past years ago? The one he said meant nothing anymore? "You were having a romantic dinner with your ex-boyfriend and you lied to me about it." "I didn't plan to lie." "Then what would you call it?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "A misunderstanding? A coincidence that you just happened to be at the most romantic restaurant in the city with him?" Zeke reached toward me, palm open in a pleading gesture. "Please, just sit down. Let me explain everything." "Explain?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You've been sneaking around with him for 3 weeks, Zeke. 3 weeks of lies about suit fittings and late work meetings and client dinners. And now you want to explain?" "He reached out to me," Zeke said desperately, words tumbling out faster now. "Last month, completely out of nowhere. Said he needed to talk to me, that he'd made a terrible mistake leaving me. I thought if I met with him once, I could get closure. That would be the end of it." "Closure?" I looked back at the phone in my hand at the image that had already burned itself into my memory. "That doesn't look like closure, Zeke. That looks like..." My voice cracked. "That looks like a date." He stood up quickly, closing the distance between us. "I love you. Only you. Rael is just someone from my past. He stops being past tense when you bring him into your present." I stepped back, maintaining space between us. If this was so innocent, why hide it from me? Why lie about where you were going? If you had nothing to feel guilty about, why all the secrecy? His silence was the only answer I needed. I looked down at the engagement ring on my finger, the one he'd placed there 2 years ago on a beach at sunset while promising me forever. I'd believed every word. I'd trusted that this ring meant we were building something permanent, something honest, something real. How foolish that seemed now. I need space, I finally said, my voice hollow. Jace, please. No. I can't talk to you right now. I can't even look at you. I walked toward our bedroom, each step feeling heavier than the last. Behind me, Zeke remained frozen in the living room, helpless and drowning in his own guilt. I closed the door between us and sat on the edge of our bed. Would it still be our bed after tonight? Staring at my phone, the screenshot stared back at me. That anonymous message burned in my mind. 3 weeks of lies. 3 weeks of secret meetings. 3 weeks of betrayal hiding behind everyday excuses. The worst part wasn't even the lying. It was the doubt that now infected everything. Every I love you we'd exchanged recently, had he meant it? Every time he'd touched me, kissed me, made plans for our future, had he been thinking of someone else? When he'd helped me address wedding invitations last week, had he been wondering if he was making a mistake? I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. I wanted to storm back out there and demand every detail of every lie. But instead, I just sat there in the dark, feeling my future crumble around me while one question echoed endlessly through my mind. Did Zeke still love him? And if he did, had he ever really stopped? Morning arrived like a punishment I hadn't earned. I barely slept, spending most of the night staring at the ceiling while Zeke tossed restlessly on the couch. Now I had to pretend to function like a normal human being when everything inside me felt shattered. I called in sick to work, something I never did because the thought of sitting through meetings and making small talk felt impossible. By noon, I was pacing the apartment like a caged animal. Zeke had left early, probably giving me space or maybe running to Rael. I hated that I couldn't trust my own thoughts anymore. That suspicion had poisoned everything. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. If you want the full truth, meet me at Brookline Park. 2 p.m. Rael. My stomach dropped. Rael was contacting me directly? How did he even get my number? And more importantly, did I actually want to meet the person who was apparently trying to steal my fiancé? Curiosity won over caution. At exactly 2 p.m. I found myself walking through the park entrance, scanning the benches until I spotted him. Rael sat casually in designer sunglasses and expensive casual wear that screamed effortless wealth. When he noticed me approaching, he removed sunglasses, revealing sharp green eyes that studied me with unsettling intensity. "So you're Jace," he said, his tone carrying a hint of amusement. "The famous fiancé I've heard so much about." "And you're Rael," I replied coldly, refusing to sit. The ex who apparently can't accept reality. His smile widened, not friendly, but knowing, like he held cards I didn't even know were in play. "You're direct. I appreciate that quality. Cut to the point. Why am I here? Because Zeke won't give you honesty, so I will." He gestured to the bench beside him. "Sit. This might take a minute." Against my better judgment, I sat, maintaining careful distance between us. "Zeke and I dated for 5 years. Rael began, leaning back like he was settling in to tell a familiar story. "Longer than you've been with him. We were inseparable. Everyone said we were endgame, but I was young and stupid. I cheated. He left me, which I absolutely deserved. Then why come back now?" I demanded. "Why ruin what he's built with me?" "Because I finally grew up and realized what I lost." His voice softened with something that might have been genuine regret. "Leaving Zeke was the biggest mistake of my life. So I decided to fix it. He's engaged to me. For now." The casual confidence in those 2 words made my blood run cold. "What's that supposed to mean?" Instead of answering, Rael pulled out his phone and turned the screen toward me. My breath caught in my throat. The video showed a parking lot at night. I recognized it as the one behind Rosewood Grill. Zeke stood near his car and Rael approached him. They talked for a moment, then Rael moved closer, backing Zeke against the car door. And then they kissed. The world tilted sideways. "This was taken last night," Rael explained calmly, watching my reaction like a scientist observing an experiment. After our dinner, I kissed him. And Jace. He paused deliberately. He kissed me back. That's not possible, I whispered. But the evidence was right there in high definition. This has to be edited, manipulated. Watch it again. I forced myself to look closer, hating every second. Zeke did resist initially. His hands came up like he might push Rael away. But then they didn't. His resistance melted. For several seconds he participated. Not enthusiastically, but enough. Enough to destroy me. My hand shook as I pushed the phone back toward Rael like it was contaminated. Why are you showing me this? Because you deserve the truth, he said simply. Zeke might love you. I'm not saying he doesn't. But he still loves me too. And as long as you're holding on to him with hope and denial, I'm going to take him back. I stood abruptly, my whole body trembling with a mixture of rage and devastation. Stay away from him. Can't make that promise. Rael stood too, pocketing his phone with infuriating casualness. Not when he keeps opening the door and letting me in. I walked away before I could say or do something I'd regret. My vision blurred with unshed tears as I navigated back to my car. The drive home passed in a fog of disbelief and heartbreak. Zeke wasn't home when I arrived. Probably still at work, or maybe that was another lie. I spent the afternoon in agonizing limbo, replaying that video in my mind, torturing myself with questions I couldn't answer. When he finally walked through the door around 7, I was waiting. Jace? He looked surprised to see me sitting in the dark living room. Have you eaten? I can order something. Did you kiss him? The words stopped him cold. What are you talking about? Rael. Last night. In the parking lot after your romantic dinner. Did you kiss him? All color drained from Zeke's face. Jace, how did you? Yes or no? The silence that followed felt endless, suffocating. I watched him struggle, watched him try to find the right words, the right explanation, anything that might soften what we both knew was coming. He kissed me, Zeke finally said, his voice breaking. And you? My own voice was barely holding together. Did you push him away? Did you stop it? He looked down at his feet, unable to meet my eyes. I was caught off guard. Everything happened so fast. That's not what I asked. I didn't immediately push him away, he admitted, each word obviously painful. But Jace, I swear it meant nothing. I was confused and shocked. And you kissed someone else. The words exploded out of me. We're supposed to get married in 2 months and you were kissing your ex-boyfriend. How could that possibly mean nothing? I made a mistake. A mistake? Tears finally spilled down my cheeks. Forgetting to buy milk is a mistake. Kissing your ex while you're engaged is a choice. He moved toward me, desperation written across his features. Please let me explain. I love you. Don't. I held up my hand, stopping him. Don't say that to me right now when I can still see you kissing him in my head. It was a moment of weakness. Then you're too weak to marry. The words came out cold and final. I pulled the engagement ring from my finger. Zeke's eyes went wide with panic. No, Jace. Please don't. Figure out what you actually want, I said, placing the ring on the coffee table with a soft clink that sounded like an ending. Because I can't compete with your past while trying to build our future. I want you, he sobbed. Actually sobbed. Only you. But I was already moving toward our bedroom, throwing clothes into an overnight bag with shaking hands. Behind me, I could hear him crying. Could hear him calling my name. Could hear him falling apart. Part of me wanted to turn around, to comfort him, to pretend this nightmare wasn't happening. But the other part, the part that had watched that video, that had seen the truth in the parking lot footage, that part knew I couldn't stay. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. 2 days at my best friend Cyrus's apartment felt like 2 years. He'd taken one look at my face when I showed up at his door with a hastily packed bag and immediately pulled me inside. No questions, no judgment, just unconditional support. He ordered pizza that I couldn't eat, put on movies I couldn't focus on, and gave me the space to fall apart in private. But Tuesday morning, he finally broke the silence. You can't avoid this forever. Zeke's been calling me. I know. I gestured toward my phone on the coffee table. Screen dark but vibrating constantly with ignored calls and unread messages. He's been calling everyone. Have you listened to any of the voicemails? No. I pulled the blanket tighter around my shoulders. I'm not ready to hear excuses. Cyrus settled onto the opposite end of the couch, coffee mug warming his hands. What are you ready for? Before I could answer, his doorbell rang. We exchanged confused glances. Neither of us was expecting anyone. Cyrus went to answer it, and my heart sank when I heard Zeke's voice from the hallway. I know Jace is here. Please, I just need 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Cyrus looked back at me questioningly. Every instinct screamed at me to hide, to refuse, to protect myself from more pain. But I also knew we couldn't avoid each other forever. I nodded reluctantly. Zeke looked terrible. Dark shadows circled his bloodshot eyes. His usually neat hair stuck up in several directions. His clothes were rumpled like he'd slept in them. If he'd slept at all. Despite everything, seeing him like this made my chest ache. Thank you, he breathed, relief flooding his features as he stepped inside. Jace, what do you want, Zeke? I kept my voice neutral, detached. I want to explain. Really explain. Not the panicked half-truths from the other night. He stayed near the door, probably sensing that crowding me would be a mistake. I know I messed up catastrophically, but please just hear me out. Talk then. I crossed my arms defensively. You've got 5 minutes. When Rael contacted me last month, I thought I could handle it maturely. He said he'd changed. That therapy helped him understand why he'd sabotaged our relationship. He wanted closure. He claimed. I figured one conversation couldn't hurt. We'd get everything out in the open and move forward. Except you didn't tell me about it. I should have. He admitted immediately. That was wrong. But Jace, he's manipulative in ways I'd forgotten. Every conversation, he'd bring up memories, shared experiences, inside jokes. He made me remember the good parts while conveniently forgetting why we ended. That doesn't explain 3 weeks of secret meetings. Zeke ran his fingers through his already messy hair. Frustration evident. Each time I tried to end contact, he'd say something that pulled me back. That he was struggling. That he needed my friendship. That dating him off completely would damage his healing process. I felt obligated to help someone I'd once cared about. But I see now that he was playing me. And the kiss? The question tasted bitter. Was that manipulation too? His face crumpled. That kiss was Rael initiated it completely. He backed me against my car before I understood what was happening. For a few seconds I froze. My brain short-circuited. But Jace, the moment I processed what was occurring, I pushed him away and told him this needed to stop. The video shows something different. Videos can be misleading. He argued desperately. They don't show the full context or what happened after. I'm not defending my moment of weakness, but it wasn't mutual. I didn't want it. Yet you admitted you didn't immediately stop it. My voice cracked despite my efforts to stay strong. That hesitation? That's what's killing me, Zeke. Because it means some part of you wasn't sure. The truth of my words hung between us. Zeke opened his mouth, closed it, struggled visibly with his response. Finally, he spoke in barely a whisper. You're right. For those few seconds I was confused. Seeing him, talking to him, having him physically close, it stirred up old feelings. Not love, exactly, but nostalgia for a time in my life that was simpler, less complicated. Hearing him admit it felt like being stabbed. So you do still have feelings for him? No. Yes. I don't know. He practically shouted in frustration. Then immediately lowered his voice. I'm trying to be completely honest here. Yes. Encountering Rael again confused me emotionally. But confusion doesn't equal love. It definitely doesn't mean I want him back or that I'm having second thoughts about us. Then why not just tell me all this from the start? I demanded. Why hide everything if it was so innocent? Because I'm an idiot who thought I could protect you from unnecessary worry. He took a tentative step closer. Because I was ashamed that I was even slightly affected by seeing him again. Because I didn't want you to doubt us over something I was certain meant nothing. But it wasn't nothing, I countered. It was something significant enough that you lied repeatedly. Something important enough that you prioritized his feelings over our relationship transparency. That's what relationships are built on, Zeke. Honesty, communication, trust, and you violated all three. I know. Tears started streaming down his face. I know I destroyed your trust. I know sorry doesn't fix this. But Jace, please, I can't lose you. You're my future. You're everything I want. Am I? The question emerged softer than I intended. Because it seems like when your past came calling, you weren't sure anymore. That's not fair. Fair? Anger surged through me suddenly. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that I had to learn about your ex from an anonymous message? Is it fair that I watched a video of you kissing someone else? Is it fair that our wedding is supposedly happening in 2 months? But you're clearly not ready for that commitment. I am ready. You're not. I stood unable to sit still any longer. If you were ready, really ready, there wouldn't have been any hesitation when Rael kissed you. There wouldn't have been secret meetings or lies or any of this. You would have shut him down immediately and been transparent with me from day one. Zeke sank to his knees, literally dropped to the floor in front of me. Please don't give up on us. I'll do anything. Therapy, couples counseling, complete transparency with my phone and schedule. Whatever you need. Looking down at him, broken and desperate on Cyrus's floor, I felt torn between my love for him and my need for self-respect. Could we recover from this? Should we even try? I need time, I finally said. Real time to process everything without you hovering and apologizing and trying to fix things before I've even figured out how I feel. How much time? I don't know, weeks? Maybe more. Will you answer if I call? Eventually. But not yet. I grabbed my jacket from the chair. I need to clear my head. Please respect that. Where are you going? Somewhere you're not. The words came out harsher than intended, but I didn't take them back. Cyrus, can I borrow your car? My friend tossed me his keys without hesitation. As I headed for the door, Zeke called after me one last time. I love you, Jace. That's the only thing I'm absolutely certain about. I paused with my hand on the doorknob but didn't turn around. Then you should have protected that love better. A week passed in a fog of pretending everything was fine when nothing was. I'd established a numbing routine: wake up at Cyrus's place, go to work, function on autopilot through meetings and emails, return to the couch that had become my temporary bed, and stare at the ceiling until exhaustion finally dragged me under. Zeke had respected my request for space, his calls and messages tapering off to nothing after our last painful conversation. Maybe he'd finally understood that I was serious about needing distance. Friday evening found me at the grocery store, mechanically filling a basket with items I didn't really want to eat. I was debating between 2 types of pasta sauce when I glanced up and saw them through the window of the coffee shop next door. Zeke and Rael, together, laughing. The basket nearly slipped from my hands. They sat at a small table by the window, completely at ease with each other. Rael was gesturing animatedly about something, and Zeke's face wore an expression of genuine amusement. No tension, no guilt, just 2 people enjoying each other's company like they didn't have a care in the world. 3 days. It had been exactly 3 days since Zeke had begged me not to give up on us, and here he was already back with the person who'd helped destroy everything we'd built together. I abandoned my basket in the middle of the aisle and walked out, my vision tunneling as I drove back to Cyrus's apartment on pure muscle memory. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the lock. What happened? Cyrus took one look at my face and immediately set down his laptop. You look like you've seen a ghost. Worse. My voice came out hollow, disconnected. I saw them, Zeke and Rael, at that coffee place on Morrison Street. They looked happy together. Are you serious right now? Cyrus's expression shifted from concern to fury in seconds. After everything he said to you? I wish I was making this up. Cyrus gripped my shoulders, forcing me to meet his eyes. Listen to me carefully. You need real closure, not this limbo you're stuck in. This half-broken, half-hoping situation isn't sustainable. Either you forgive him completely and try to rebuild, or you end things officially and start moving forward. There's no middle ground here. I want to end it. The admission felt both terrifying and liberating. I need to end it. But I'm scared. Of what? Of being wrong. Of overreacting. Of destroying something that could have been saved if I'd just been stronger or more understanding or... Stop. Cyrus's voice was firm. You are not the problem here. Zeke lied repeatedly. He betrayed your trust. He kissed his ex while wearing your engagement ring. And now he's apparently having coffee dates with that same person days after promising to fight for your relationship. None of that is on you. Logically, I knew he was right. Emotionally, I was still tangled up in guilt and doubt and residual love that refused to die quietly. That night, as I was finally drifting towards sleep around midnight, my phone lit up with Zeke's name. I ignored it. He called again. And again. On the fourth attempt, frustration overrode my resolve. "What do you want, Zeke?" "Thank God you answered." His voice carried an edge of panic. "I need you to let me explain something before you jump to conclusions. I'm exhausted. Make it quick. 2 minutes. That's all I need." I sighed heavily. "Fine. Clock's ticking. I know you saw Rael and me at the coffee shop today. Cyrus told me you were upset when you got home." My stomach dropped. "He called you?" "He thought I should know. But Jace, that meeting wasn't what it looked like. I was finally ending things with Rael properly. Face to face. Setting clear boundaries so there'd be no confusion going forward. You looked pretty cheerful for someone setting boundaries. Because we reached an understanding without drama. We agreed that our past needed to stay in the past. And we parted on civil terms. I did that for us, for our future. There is no us anymore, Zeke. The words tasted like ash. There's no future to protect. The silence that followed felt endless. "What do you mean?" His voice cracked on the last word. "I mean, I'm done. Completely, officially done. I can't forgive what happened. I can't rebuild trust that's been shattered this badly. And honestly, maybe you and Rael are better suited for each other anyway. You got your closure with him. Maybe you'll find something more permanent too. I don't want him, I only want you. Well, I don't want you anymore." The lie burned my throat, but I forced it out anyway, because wanting him and being able to trust him were two entirely different things. "Jace, please don't. This is goodbye, Zeke. For real this time." I ended the call before he could respond, then turned off my phone completely. The tears came immediately, hot and angry and filled with grief for everything we'd lost. Cyrus knocked softly before entering. "Are you all right?" "No," I admitted. "But eventually I will be." He sat beside me in the darkness. "You made the right choice. Even if it doesn't feel like it right now. Then why does it feel like I just amputated part of myself?" "Because you did. In a way. But Jace, sometimes you have to cut away infected tissue to save the healthy parts. Staying in a toxic relationship would have poisoned everything good about you eventually. This pain is temporary. The damage from staying would have been permanent." I let his words sink in while the tears continued to fall. He was right. I knew he was right. But knowledge didn't make the hurt any less excruciating. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a strange sense of determination. I typed out a message to Zeke before I could second-guess myself. "I'm keeping the apartment. You can collect your belongings next week when I'm at work. Please don't contact me again. We're done." His response came within minutes. "I understand. I'm sorry for everything I put you through." And just like that, it was over. 2 years of relationship, an engagement, wedding plans, a shared life, all of it reduced to a few text messages and a pile of belongings waiting to be divided up. Part of me expected to feel devastated. Instead, I felt oddly empty, like a storm had passed through and left everything flat and quiet in its wake. Maybe this was what acceptance felt like. Or maybe I was just too exhausted to feel anything else. But as I sat there staring at that final exchange of messages, one thought kept circling through my mind. If Zeke had truly been committed to us, he would have been honest from the start. He would have set boundaries with Rael immediately. He would have prioritized our relationship over his ex's feelings. He didn't. And that told me everything I needed to know. I deserved someone who wouldn't hesitate. Someone who wouldn't need to figure out whether they wanted me or someone else. Someone who would choose me decisively, completely, without doubt. Zeke wasn't that person. Maybe he never had been. 1 month later, life had developed a new rhythm, slower, quieter but steadily moving forward. The days blended together in a pattern of work, gym sessions, meal prep and early bedtimes. Zeke had honored my request and stayed silent, collecting his things from the apartment while I was conveniently absent. No drama. No final confrontation, just a clean surgical separation that left everything feeling unfinished despite being definitively over. Sunday morning found me at my favorite corner cafe, nursing a coffee and attempting to read a book I couldn't focus on. The place was nearly empty. Just a few early risers scattered among the tables. I was finally starting to feel like myself again, fragile but healing. Then Rael appeared. Is this seat taken? He didn't wait for an answer before pulling out the chair across from me. Actually, yes, I said coldly. By someone who isn't you. Too bad. He settled in comfortably, ordering an espresso from the passing waiter like he belonged there. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. But I have plenty to say to you. He leaned forward, his expression uncharacteristically serious. Zeke is miserable. My heart stuttered. But I kept my face carefully neutral. That's not my concern anymore, isn't it? He tilted his head. You two are officially finished. Wedding cancelled. Relationship over. And yet he talks about you constantly. Won't even consider moving on. Then why are you here instead of consoling him? Rael's confident demeanor cracked slightly. Because I realized that everything I did was monumentally selfish and wrong. I raised an eyebrow skeptically. Suddenly grew a conscience? Call it whatever you want, he shrugged. But the truth is, Zeke loves you. He always did. I manipulated him, guilt-tripped him, played on old memories, used every psychological trick I could think of. He got confused because I deliberately confused him. This isn't news to me, I interrupted. Tell me something I don't already know. What you don't know is that you're both suffering unnecessarily. He's miserable without you. And unless I'm completely misreading the shadows under your eyes and the way you're gripping that coffee cup, you're not exactly thriving either. I'm not going to be a martyr for someone else's mistakes. I'm not asking you to be, Rael said, surprising me. But you could try choosing your own happiness instead of your pride. I stared at him, trying to figure out his angle. What exactly do you want from me? I want you to talk to him again. Give him one genuine chance to prove he's learned something. Because honestly, you two are incomplete without each other. I've watched him this past month, and he's just going through motions. You're his missing piece. That's remarkably self-aware coming from the person who orchestrated this disaster. Even villains occasionally realize they've gone too far. Rael stood, dropping cash on the table for his untouched espresso. I don't want you two apart because of my interference. That's not a victory, it's just sad. He left before I could formulate a response, leaving me stunned and uncertain. Was he being genuine, or was this another manipulation? I couldn't tell anymore. My judgment felt compromised by exhaustion and lingering heartbreak. That afternoon, I was back at the apartment. My apartment now, though it still felt haunted by Zeke's absence. When someone knocked on the door, my stomach sank even before I looked through the peephole. Zeke stood in the hallway, looking nervous and determined in equal measure. I know I promised not to contact you, he said the moment I opened the door. But I need 5 minutes. Just 5. Then I'll leave and never bother you again if that's what you want. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside to let him in. He looked thinner, older somehow, like the past month had aged him. You have 5 minutes. Use them wisely. I love you. The words came out strong and clear. I know I made terrible choices. I know I hurt you deeply. But not a single day has passed when I haven't thought about you. Your laugh, the way you scrunch your nose when you're concentrating, the future we planned together. Zeke, please let me finish. His eyes were desperate but focused. Rael manipulated me. Yes. But I also failed you. I should have set firm boundaries immediately. I should have included you in every decision instead of trying to handle everything alone. My attempt to protect you from worry ended up destroying your trust completely. My throat felt tight, but I remained silent. I've been in therapy, he continued, working through why I let him back into my life, why I struggled with being honest. All of it. I'm not asking you to fix me or wait-tape me to become perfect. I'm just asking for one chance to show you that I've genuinely changed. I turned away, blinking back tears. It's not that simple. I know it isn't. You don't understand, I said, frustration bleeding into my voice. You didn't just lie. You shattered something fundamental. Trust doesn't just reappear because we want it to. It has to be rebuilt piece by piece. And I don't know if I have the energy for that. Then don't decide right now, Zeke said quietly. Take whatever time you need. I'll wait however long it takes. I finally faced him, seeing the red-rimmed eyes, the exhaustion etched into his features, but also something else. Hope. Zeke, I said slowly, carefully. I still love you. That's the problem. If I didn't, this would be easy. But, he held his breath. But I need to heal before I can even think about us. This breakup shattered me. If I come back to you now, I'll come back broken, insecure, and constantly doubting. That's not fair to either of us. Zeke nodded slowly, processing. What do you need from me? Space. Real space. Time to figure out who I am outside of our relationship. And after that, maybe we can try again. But not now. Not yet. His face showed painful acceptance. All right. I'll give you all the space you need. Don't wait for me. I added softly. Live your life. If we're meant to find our way back to each other, it'll happen naturally. But don't put your life on hold. A single tear escaped down his cheek before he quickly wiped it away. I'll always love you. That won't change. I know. He moved toward the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. You deserve someone better than who I was. I hope I can become that person. Maybe, I admitted. But Zeke, you also deserve to be happy. Just figure yourself out first. He nodded and left, closing the door gently behind him. I stood alone in the silent apartment, then walked to the window. Below, Zeke emerged onto the sidewalk, walking slowly away with his shoulders curved in defeat. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Not happiness. Not satisfaction. Just relief. Because finally, after all the confusion and pain and desperate attempts to salvage something unsalvageable, we had real closure. Our story didn't have a happy ending. But it had an honest one. And maybe that was more important. 6 months transformed everything. I'd moved into a smaller apartment across town, just 1 bedroom, but entirely mine. Work had gone well enough that I'd earned a promotion I'd been chasing for years. Therapy turned out to be surprisingly helpful, slowly untangling the knots of self-doubt and residual pain. Gradually, piece by piece, I was rediscovering who I was outside of being Zeke's fiancé. As for Zeke himself, I'd catch glimpses of his life occasionally through social media. He'd relocated to a different city for a new position. His photos showed someone who looked healthier, more settled, genuinely content in ways he hadn't been toward the end of our relationship. Surprisingly, seeing his happiness didn't trigger jealousy or bitterness, just a quiet acceptance that we'd both moved forward separately. Tuesday evening found me jogging through the park, enjoying the early autumn weather. I was lost in thought, barely paying attention to my surroundings, when I collided with another runner. Sorry, I wasn't. The apology died in my throat. Zeke stood there, equally startled. Jace, we both froze, unsure how to navigate this unexpected reunion. The last time we'd seen each other, everything had been raw and painful. Now, enough time had passed that the sharpest edges had dulled. Hi. I finally managed. Hi. His smile was genuine, if tentative. You look good. Healthy. Thanks. So do you. An awkward silence settled between us, comfortable and strange in equal measure. We'd shared 2 years of our lives, planned a future together, and now we were reduced to stilted small talk like acquaintances who'd once known each other better. I'm just here temporarily, Zeke explained. A week-long business trip. The company sent me back to oversee a project transition. How's the new job treating you? It's good. Challenging but rewarding. Yours? Similar. Busy but in a good way. More awkward silence. This was surreal. Dancing around meaningful conversation with someone who'd once known every detail of my life. Jace. Zeke said hesitantly. I want to apologize, properly this time, for everything that happened last year. The lying. The betrayal, all of it. I nodded slowly. I appreciate hearing that. I also want you to know that ending things was the right decision. You made the correct choice, even though it hurt. I've learned a lot about myself since then, started therapy, worked through my issues with mem and honesty. I realized I wasn't ready to be the partner you deserved back then. Zeke. No, please let me finish. His smile held sadness but also peace. You deserved better than what I gave you. You deserved someone who was completely certain, who didn't waver or hide things or let old relationships interfere. I wasn't that person then, but I'm working on becoming that person now, not just for a potential future partner, but for myself. My chest felt tight with complicated emotions. I'm proud of you. Genuinely. Thank you. He looked down, scuffing his shoe against the pavement. Can I ask you something? Have you ever thought about whether we might, someday? No, I said gently but firmly, cutting off that dangerous line of thinking. Zeke, what we had was real and special. I don't regret our time together, but that chapter is closed now. We've both moved on, grown in different directions. Opening old wounds wouldn't help either of us. Zeke absorbed this, nodding slowly. I understand. I had to ask though. I get it. I meant that sincerely. But I hope you find someone who deserves the person you're becoming. Someone you can commit to fully without hesitation or doubt. You too, he whispered. You deserve someone who chooses you decisively every single day. We stood there for another moment. Two people who'd shared so much now existing in completely separate orbits. There was no anger left, no bitterness, no desperate longing for what might have been. Just respect and a recognition that we'd both learned necessary lessons from each other. Take care of yourself, Jace. You too, Zeke. He jogged away slowly, and I watched until he disappeared around a bend in the path. Then I continued my own run in the opposite direction, feeling lighter somehow. No regret haunted me this time. No pain stabbed through my chest. Just acceptance, pure, complete, peaceful acceptance. Because some relationships aren't meant to last forever. Some people enter our lives to teach us crucial lessons about ourselves, to show us what we need and what we can't tolerate, to help us become stronger versions of ourselves. Zeke had been that person for me. He taught me that love alone isn't sufficient, that trust forms the foundation of everything, that self-respect matters more than clinging to something broken, that sometimes the bravest choice is walking away from someone you still love because you love yourself more. Our ending wasn't the fairy tale I'd imagined when he first proposed on that beach, but it was honest, it was necessary, and ultimately, it was right. As I finished my run and headed home to my small apartment with its mismatched furniture and walls I'd painted myself, I felt genuinely content for the first time in over a year. Not deliriously happy, but solidly, peacefully okay. I'd survived heartbreak. I'd rebuilt myself from the ground up. I'd learned to stand alone without crumbling, and now finally I was ready to move forward, not haunted by what I'd lost, but strengthened by everything I'd endured. The right ending isn't always the happy one. Sometimes the right ending is the one that brings peace, that allows both people to grow into better versions of themselves, that closes one door completely so new ones can open. Zeke and I had found our peace. We'd said our final goodbye not with anger or tears, but with respect and genuine wishes for each other's happiness. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.